Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be talking about experience that many couples face, and we are thinking about couples, especially those that are from developing countries like Malawi and various other developing countries. And you have been married for a couple of years, and maybe you have been thinking of pursuing postgraduate studies abroad, and this is something that keeps coming up in the conversations that you have as a couple. But when you think about your commitments, you're looking at your commitment to work, raising of children, and your financial responsibility, it just looks like and feels like the time has never been right. Now, you are finally ready to take that particular step, but you are not very sure about where you want to begin. And this is where this particular video comes in. Because if you're thinking of applying for scholarships differently, not as jointly, then this particular video is going to be useful. And I have to say, first of all, it's a very smart strategy if you're going to be applying for different scholarships as a couple, because essentially it increases your chances of you getting the opportunities. But if you're also worried, just understand that it's really normal for people to worry about ending up in different countries because, let's be honest, the distance, the time zones, it's a lot more complicated when it comes to couples, and it has also a potential of affecting your relationship and affecting your whole family as a unit. So in this particular video, I'm going to touch on some of these things. And if you have a friend that you feel this video is going to be useful to, please share it with them because it's going to help them. So the very first thing that you have to think about is you don't have to choose between your family and your education. I know that for most of us, when you start to think about studying abroad, we start to think about it as being irresponsible. But that doesn't have to be the case, because if you're thinking of further studies, you're not abandoning your family. Or as a couple, you're not thinking of, ignoring your responsibility, or you have to feel guilty about it. Because wanting personal growth or thinking of academic development is really about an investment. And when you invest in education, you're not just investing for yourself, you are investing for the transformation usually of your future, and that future involves any other individual who is part of the family unit. And the truth of the matter is, people with higher education, they usually get better jobs, they have greater financial security, and there's even more opportunities, not just for themselves, even for children that are open because of further education. So education in itself is not running away from responsibility. In my opinion, it's one of the ways people use to step up. The second thing to think about is you are applying, yes, as individually, but when you're thinking of your strategy, think of yourself as a team. Because even though you're applying for different scholarships or different programs, you have to find a way of approaching the journey as a united front. So you are looking at it as a team. And what this looks like is you are applying around the same time, you are looking at the very same general timeline, because you are thinking of chances of both of you making it and then building a life together. You are targeting countries that are close to each other or within the very same country. You are coordinating your duration of study. You are keeping an eye out on visa policies of the different countries that you're looking at, particularly those policies that focus on the family. You are supporting each other as you're working through your deadlines and your workload. So yes, you're making different applications, but you're working as one unit, because this is basically a strategy that's going to help you to increase your chances. It's going to help you to find ways of managing the stress, to manage the workload, to manage the potential responsibility, because you are now working as one particular unit. The third point that is worth thinking about is you have to have an honest conversation about this. It is quite sad that people have this conversation later, but in my opinion, I believe you should have this honest conversation way earlier, so that you are clear about exactly what you're trying to do, and you're also clearing a couple of things when it comes to expectations. So you have to be able to ask yourself very difficult questions, but very necessary questions. And some of them are around things of who is better prepared at the moment. So when you look at the academic record, who is better prepared at the moment? Is there a chance that one partner needs to improve their grades or their score sheet first before they can attempt for these opportunities? You might think of gathering documents. Again, who has more experience in terms of gathering documents, or who has those documents that who needs to get them? Again, in terms of childcare, there is a potential that you're going to think of these things. So how is going to handle childcare, and how is that going to be processed? And the most important one is, in the event where both of you are not given an opportunity and you are forced to be separate, how long as a unit can you manage that distance? Is it something that is even worth the conversation? So it's worth having that particular conversation, because when you are clear about these things, it prevents resentment that has the potential of developing later. Number 4 is to build a shared financial strategy. I can't emphasize enough about how a financial strategy is very important, because if you're going to get into higher education, there are going to be costs involved. If you're going to be studying abroad, yes, even the costs are going to be over the roof. And these are costs to do with your studies, and then there are also costs that have to do with taking care of your kids. And this can be costs of taking care of your kids in the country that you're living, or where you're taking care of your kids remotely, where you're studying but your kids are back home. So you have to be able to think about these things. And among the other things to think about is the rent and cost of living abroad. What does that look like? Medical insurance and emergencies. What does that look like, and how are these things handled? Does your scholarship cover these things? If you're thinking of travel again and you're bringing the family as a unit, what are those travel expenses? That also brings in an element of visa processes. Think about those things and have conversations. Childcare arrangements. How are you going to handle it? Are you going to be taking care of the kids, or do they have to be in a childcare center? How much is that going to cost? Think about these things. There are things that are going to be very important when you're thinking of making a decision to go for further studies. Again, there are certain scholarships that are likely going to cover certain aspects, but they are likely not going to cover everything, which is why it is always important to think of having a shared financial strategy, because this is something that is also going to bring in that element of stability. Number 5 is to understand the types of scholarships that fit your situation. Every situation is going to be unique. So when you're now searching for scholarships, you're not looking for all the scholarships. You are particularly looking for scholarships that fit with your financial situation. So there are many scholarships out there that are thinking of students from developing countries, students like yourself. They're thinking of students who cannot afford to pay for their tuition. You may fit that. There are scholarships that are also looking for people who are mature or mid-career level individuals. There are scholarships that are there, and you should be able to tap into some of that. And most importantly, there are scholarships that are also looking for people who are parents or people who have been married. So take some time to think of these particular scholarships in particular. There are some scholarships that are not going to focus on the elements that I've just mentioned. There are others that have taken into consideration these things. And when you're applying for scholarships, it is very important that you start to look for scholarships that do fit the things that you're looking for, that do fit the things that I've just mentioned, because it is going to be very useful. It is going to help you manage the stress. It is even going to help you also as you are developing your strategy. And when you're looking for this scholarship, certain things are just worth pointing out. Find ways of thinking of, does this scholarship cover living stipend for dependents? Does it cover visa fees? If it's a government scholarship, is it affordable to live in that particular country? Yes, you have the scholarship, but when you weigh it against the cost of living in that particular country, how does that fare? Because again, when you're now thinking of applying as somebody who is married, as somebody who's with a family, there are a lot of factors you have to consider, and you have to be realistic as well. Number 6, when you're now putting together your application as individuals, it is very important that you highlight your individual strength. Yes, you are applying as a unit, you are applying as a team, but you have to understand that you are all unique individuals and you have different experiences, you have strength. For one of you, it might be your education background is just solid, maybe you got distinctions. For another, it might be your work experience. It is quite important that you spend some time to think of these things, to dig into these things, because these are the things that are going to help you when you're making the application. The point is, when you dig and you start looking at the strength of each applicant, you find that you increase your chances of submitting an application document that is very strong, and that increases the chance of both of you being picked for an opportunity. Now, the seventh point is to think about the narratives. Yes, you are individuals that are applying as a unit. But even though you are applying as a unit, it's always very important to understand that you have different narratives. Yes, these narratives might be related in one way or another because you're a family unit. So there's a chance that there's going to be an overlap. But the idea is that when you are making these applications, you are applying as individuals and they are going to be assessed as individuals. So it's therefore important that you think of a unique narrative. A unique narrative which can stand on its own when somebody is looking at an application without really understanding the whole complex narratives of the bigger narrative that the two of you are bringing in together. So think about it, reflect on it, because this is going to be very, very important. Another point, which is point number 8, is to plan ahead for family and kids. When you're studying abroad with children, there's a lot of planning that you need to do. It is possible, but it's also not straightforward. It's a bit complicated. And it is always important for you to be able to think about these things. Think about whether your dependent can travel with a student. So if you are the primary visa holder and then you have your dependent that you're bringing in, can that dependent come with a child? What does your visa require in terms of bringing in a child? In terms of childcare responsibilities and options of school abroad, what are those options? Is there healthcare work for the family? Is there a possibility of you going and somebody remaining behind and then joining you later? Is there a support system that's going to be there in the country where you want to study, or there is a support system back home? So you have to be able to think about these things and think about them with a sober mind. I know it is very exciting to get a scholarship. I know it is very exciting to think about studying abroad. This is a dream that you have been chasing for a while. But you don't want these things to be complicated because you didn't plan properly when it comes to children. So think about it, because this is going to be very useful. Another thing, which is point number 9, that is worth thinking about, is also planning for the emotional distance, the potential emotional distance. Yes, you're going to be planning everything, and everything is likely going to go on perfectly, but there are chances that things might not go your way. There's a chance that one of you might go first and another person might remain behind. There's a chance that one of you is going to get the scholarship and another one is not going to get the scholarship. So that brings in then the chance of the distance itself. You have to be able to plan for that distance. How are you going to ensure that you keep in touch and you keep the relationship going and you support it? So you can think of simple things like daily check-ins, weekly video phone calls, shared calendars, just to ensure that you're keeping each other updated, because this is going to become something that's useful for you as a couple, especially when it comes to your studies. As somebody that has studied abroad before, I do understand how your academic pressures can also put pressure on your relationship if it's not properly managed. Point number 10 is you have to find a way of celebrating every win together. The process of applying for a scholarship is stressful as a process. And when you're applying for these scholarships as a family, it's even more stressful. So there has to be a way of you thinking about some of the things that you can do to help keep you in better spirits. So things like just celebrating each and every step. For me, if you have received a letter that you have been shortlisted for a scholarship, that is worth a celebration. If you have been invited for an interview, that is worth a celebration. If you have even submitted an application, to me, that's worth a celebration, because if you have gone through the process of applying, which is not easy because they require a lot of things, to be able to reach that very end, we have submitted a document, it is worth a celebration. So find a way of celebrating every progress that you make. Find a way of celebrating every small step that you take, because that is going to help you as you are making this particular journey. So to every couple watching this particular video, we have to go back to the basics. You have to remember that your dreams are valid. You have to remember that the goal of you studying as a couple is very much achievable. It is very possible for you as a family, as a unit, to be able to get scholarships at different individuals and to be able to bring your children to be able to study in a different country, either together or in separate countries. Very possible. So when you're thinking about these particular things, do not let anything, and I mean do not let anything give you an idea that this thing is impossible. And the second thing, which is even more important, is for others your biggest worry is the fact that yes, I might get the scholarship, or we might get the scholarship, but there is a possibility of this particular scholarship or further studies becoming one of those things that eventually breaks our family. That's a very valid concern, and you're not the first people to be having those concerns. And I know there are many examples of people that you can give who, once they left to go for further studies, they are no longer together. There are all sorts of examples. But another thing also that is worth thinking about is there are other people that also went through this particular journey and they're still together and they're still going stronger. So if you can, find ways of also engaging with those people. They'll be able to share with you as much wisdom as possible, which is going to help you in this particular journey. If you have found this video useful, I encourage you to give it a thumbs up, to share, to like, and find someone you think, or find a couple who you feel like they deserve to watch this particular video. Maybe they can learn one or two things. Please share that video with them. I would really appreciate that. Thank you so much, and see you in my next video.